Mental Health and Motivational Mondays. This is your small dose motivator, Tam Talk, here to bring you a small dose of motivation to get your week started in the right direction. So, on today's episode, I want to talk about get some therapy, right? We hear that, we see that on the social media platforms. Get some therapy. Get some therapy. Get some therapy. And so I did a rant like perhaps an individual doesn't need therapy. Perhaps they just need a friend, right? So here's the thing, and I spoke about it on the last episode, but I want to talk about it again because we see it all the time, and I think because we are ingesting other individuals' issues or concerns, and then we begin to question ourselves, like, okay, if they are experiencing a particular issue, and the issue that they are experiencing is similar to that of what I may have experienced, and again, how I reacted or responded to that circumstance, and it was different from others, is something wrong with me? Do I need to be seeking therapy? So I was having a conversation with someone, and they made an observation. It's like, sometimes because mental health is trending, and don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing that we're bringing more awareness to mental health. But if we're not careful, we can water down mental health, and those who actually do need mental health will go unnoticed because everyone else feels that they need mental health therapy. Am I judging? Do I know who needs mental health therapy, or I don't know. Hello and welcome to Mental Health and Motivational Mondays. This is your girl Tam Talk, here to bring you a small dose of motivation to get your week started. And I am just loving this intro that I created because, in all honesty, it does speak to that. Sometimes we don't need mental health therapy, but it is a trend. And I'm not saying that that's a bad trend, because it is bringing awareness to those who actually need it, and encouraging those who actually need it to seek help. And so, as I mentioned in the introduction, is that sometimes we more so we need a friend than we do mental health therapy. We need someone to listen to us. We need a listening ear. We need someone to provide some authentic, some godly feedback to our situations. We need someone to shed some light. And so on today's episode, I want to talk about coming out. Come out of the dark. And so first, I'm going to go with a biblical verse, and this is my go-to verse whenever I'm going through, I would say, a rough patch, or if I'm like at the brink of burnout, something to give me hope. And this verse was shared with me many years ago, and it just stuck with me. And like I said, this is my go-to verse. And so I'm going to read it to you. And it is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And I'm going to read that one more time. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So many of you may be listening and like, okay, we hear that, we read that, but what I am experiencing doesn't mimic that verse. I was gonna say that phrase, that verse. And so a lot of times, if we're honest with ourselves, we have our own goals, or we have our own agenda, right? We have our vision boards, and this is the time of the year where we start creating vision boards and goals for the upcoming year. Here's the thing. One, we don't know if we're going to be here next year, because it's, is each day. We're living each day. We should be grateful for each day. And again, we say, Lord willing, if it's within the Lord's will that we see 2023, then so be it. But sometimes we go into the next day thinking, without thinking that, okay, perhaps we may not be here the next day, and so on with next year. But however, we create vision boards, we set goals in hopes that those things will come to pass. And so I'm not saying that setting goals and having visions or creating vision boards are incorrect or wrong. No, if that's the way that it gives you hope, that's awesome. It keeps you motivated, yes. And so oftentimes when we create our vision boards or our goals, we forget the main ingredient, and that is God. We create that with our own agenda or our own intentions in mind, and again, leaving out the main ingredient, which is God. So what our goals may look like, or what we have envisioned or planned for ourselves, may not be the plan that God has for us. It may not even be on his agenda for us, right? Not to say that, okay, we may not be here, but it may be that he has something better for us. He may have something better for us, and because we're so dead set on our goals and our agenda, that we overlook or we forsake the plans that God has for us, which again will be better than our agenda. So what happens is when we feel like our goals or our objectives aren't being met, we feel like we have been forsaken, or God isn't real, or God doesn't love us, or we begin to compare ourselves to someone else because perhaps we feel like God is showing more love to that person than He is to us, and that is farthest from the truth. Is that, again, you have your agenda and your way of approaching your goals, whereas God may have something different. And who's to say that what you're desiring is not also what God has in the plan? It could be our approach on how we get to that desire or to that goal is inaccurate, right? So God may have something better for us. That desire that we have, it may be he may make it grand, right? But because we again have envisioned in our minds how we are going to pursue or reach that goal, and that may not be what God has designed for us. So again, so when I read the verse, or when I say when you read the verse or hear the verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, the plans to prosper you and not to harm you, the plans to give you hope in a future. We don't believe that because, again, it's not happening in our time. It's not happening the way that we want. It's not happening, we would say, it's not happening at all. And I always encourage through the various episodes that it is important for us to take a pause to reflect on where we are, what's happening. So sometimes we get dead set on trying to reach our goals that we become so busy and we don't take a moment to pause and to reflect on where we are, right? And a lot of times, and I can attest to this because I have been, and sometimes I'm still am that individual that that's going and going and going because I'm an ambitious person. And yes, I wear many hats. I am an ambitious person, and when I have that nudge or that moment to get still and reflect, and I realize that where I'm trying to go, or what I'm trying to achieve, I'm already in it. I'm already there. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we be so dead set or focused on reaching our goals that when we pause and reflect, we will soon realize that where we're trying to go, we are already there. And a prime example of that is I shared with a very close friend of mine a couple of weeks ago that I have to change the way that I speak to myself, or speak to my goals, or speak to whatever that is, because and let me go back. How I say that is because I will always say I am trying to reach something. I am trying to reach. So the term I am trying. So if I am continuously trying, it's almost like I'm never reaching the goal, right? I will never get there. I will never succeed because I am always trying. And so when I have that moment of reflection, I soon realized I was already there. I had already reached the goal. Okay. So sometimes we don't even, if I'm honest with myself, sometimes I don't even know where I'm trying to go. And that's where comparison comes in because we're constantly looking at another individual's lives and how their life is playing out and not really taking stock on our lives, right? And so you may be there, or you may have arrived, but because you're looking at someone else's life, you feel like you're not there yet. And again, it's that's the farthest from the truth. So what I have started doing once I had that epiphany or that revelation is that I'm going to start saying, I am there. I am here. I have reached this goal, right? I have reached it. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm not trying to reach a goal. I am in the goal. I am in the moment. I am where I need to be. And sometimes where we need to be, whether that's in a goal or whether that's in life or what have you, may be exactly where it is where we need to be. We may not need to be where we see someone else is. We may need to be where we are because you don't know what God may have in store for you at that moment or where you are or currently are. And sometimes what we also have to do is allow God to evolve us. We go so hard trying to evolve ourselves. We're trying, and we don't realize that God is evolving us. He's evolving us. He's pruning us. He's taking those things away that aren't meant for us, but he's also grooming us. He's evolving us, right? To blossom, to flourish. And sometimes, again, if we're not careful, if we're so busy, we don't take the moment to reflect to see where we are and see how God has his hand on our lives and how he is developing us. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this too. Sometimes I know a lot of us we want success, and that is one of my business mottos is coach, training, motivating, success, and in that order. Success is one of the I call it the pillars of my brand. And sometimes, like I said, success looks different for different people. Success for many is, fame and fortune. Fame and fortune. And that may not be the success that God has for you. Your success could be something else, right? And so, let me tell you how you can tell, or how I can tell when it's a God success. Because I'm at peace when it occurs. I'm at peace, right? I'm at peace. Whereas when I'm working when I'm working at it on my own, it's always a struggle. It's always a struggle to find success. But when it's a God success, it's you're at peace, you're at ease, and the doors open for you, right? The doors open for you. And so we have to get back to, again, realizing that we just need to get back to God. To be honest with you, we need to get back to God. We need to get back to the Word. We need to get back and really meditate on the Word of God. And we need people. Let me go back. So I'm in church service, and the pastor message was, "How strong is your yes? How strong is your yes?" Pastor Eric Alexander, appreciate it. And so sometimes we half-heartedly say yes, and sometimes we don't say yes at all. But when we commit to saying yes, he made a great I don't want to say observation because it's not observation, but statement. When we say yes, that doesn't mean that the answer or the blessing is going to come overnight. There's still some work that has to be done. God is preparing you. He's grooming you for that moment. He's evolving you. He's evolving you. And so, for example, like I had a prophetic word spoken over my life years ago. That was great. I received it, but I also had my own agenda, right? I also had my own agenda. And the prophetic word was so strong, like it was, say strong, it was so detailed that they told me everything. They gave me like very specific details about the prophetic word. And I received it. And here's the thing, it was said by two different people, right? Two different people. As I mean people of God. They didn't know each other, two different locations, the same exact word. Well, I would say one was a little bit more specific. I mean, they got down to person, place, time, all of that. And again, at that time I had my own goals. I had an agenda. I had some resolutions, right? And so the one person told me, like, okay, well, okay, you go forth with that. But it wasn't a thing of like trying to strong arm me to see their way. They said, okay, well, you go forth with that, and okay, that's all they said. It was okay, okay, and when I sit still and I reflect, I can see what that person. I see the things that the person had spoken to me. Well, both of the people, but more so the specifics, the details of the last person that spoke the prophetic word over me. I could see it, and I chuckle every time, and I'm laughing at my own goals, right? I'm laughing at my own goals, and I'm also laughing at that because God's hand is on there. Okay, God's hand is on there, and so sometimes, but again, that was many years ago. But again, I'm just seeing it. And I'm still not, to me, I don't still think that I am is fully evolved, but I see the hand. I see the hand on my life, right? And so sometimes what disappoints us is the fact that it's not happening overnight, right? We have our goals, or perhaps you had a prophetic word spoken over your life. But because it's not happening overnight, because we live in a microwave society, like we put it in for a few minutes and voila, we feel like we are at loss, that God has forsaken us, and that is not the case. We have to get back to going through the process. We have to get back to going through the process. We have to get back to going through the growth spurts, the growing pains. We don't like going through the growing pains. The growing pains develop character, right? If God has spoken a purpose or goal over your life, we have to be cognizant or mindful that there are going to be some growing pains, because we may be doing some things, right? Let's say I'm going to do this, a drug dealer, right? Someone who sells drugs. Okay, they have the character of an entrepreneur, right? Of a business person, but they're utilizing those gifts in the wrong way. So if they commit themselves to God, or the way that God had deemed for them to go, they're going to have to go through some growing pains. And growing pains mean they're going to have to cut ties with the current industry that they're in, whether that be through, okay, they may have to do some time in prison, in jail. It may be, they have to cut off those people that they've been connected to. It could be a lot of, like I say, some pruning and some reestablishing in order to get to that point. But again, the gifts that God has given us, they're not going to leave us. they won't leave us. Just the concept or the area or the arena in which we're trying to display God's gifts may change because it's not of God to be selling drugs, right? And so we have to recommit to going through the process, to go through the growing pains to get where we need to be. And the growing pains, again, is really more about character development, pruning those things that are not beneficial to our character, and also growing the things that are beneficial to our character, especially where we're trying to go. I know you've seen things, if you're on social media, you've seen statements or posts where it says you can't take everybody with you, and that is absolutely correct, because some people come for certain seasons, some people come for certain reasons, and then there are certain people that's supposed to be there for a lifetime, right? And that's the same. God is going to prune people. God is going to prune habits. He's going to help you develop other habits. He's going to help you evolve to reach their goal. Because where you are going and where God is trying to take you, you can't take everything that you're currently in with you. And so one of the things you want to do is start with definitely your mindset. Definitely your mindset. Like I mentioned earlier, I was thinking I'm trying to get there, and not realizing I was already there. And once I had that revelation, I am no longer saying I'm trying to get there. I am there. I am there, right? I am there. And so you have to get into that mindset as well, that you are already there. You are already there. And whatever God is trying to do for you, allow him to do that for you and to you and through you. For you, to you, and through you, right? And also, I want to add this because no one has spoke on this, that you're not going to be everyone's not going to be a celebrity. Everyone doesn't need to be in the spotlight to receive God's grace to be successful. And I think we're caught up in, we want everybody to see us succeed. We want success. We want the money. We want the fame. And just sometimes you don't need that. God is not going to bless you. He's going to bless you outwardly, but he's not going to bless you like you are a celebrity. Okay? That was one of my hiccups too. God is not going to bless you like he blesses a celebrity, right? Like where you're going to have lights and cameras all in your face, and the world is going to bow down to you, and they're going to worship you, because we're not God. We're not God. As you have seen, people who had it all, the things that we so long for, they're taking their own lives, right? Because again, they're in a dark space. And so you don't want to be in a dark space. You want to come out of the dark space. You want to be in the light. You want to be in the light. Do we have peaks? Do we have valleys? Yes. Do we celebrate our successes? Yes. It's okay to celebrate. It's okay to celebrate, but don't expect the limelight. Don't expect, the lights and cameras and things of that nature. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you something. God has blessed me, right? God has blessed me. I too was that person wanting the validation. I too was that person wanted the spotlight. I too was that person wanted the fame and the finances and all of that came along with it. I wanted people to, I won't say I want people to worship me. I wanted people to acknowledge me. I wanted people to acknowledge my worth. I wanted people to acknowledge what I brought to the table, and that in we they as they should, not in a way of, let's say, like worship you, but someone should take the time to acknowledge your part in whatever it is that whatever that's supposed to come to pass, right? And I think that's where a lot of heartburn is. People aren't being acknowledged or appreciated for what they bring to the table. You may not be the person in the spotlight. You may not be the celebrity, but you had a hand somewhere in the making of that celebrity. And because you're not being seen or validated or valued, you feel like you're not important. You feel like you're not important. And again, this was me, where I would work with some people on some projects, and the other person or the other people will be recognized and validated for their work, when I knew that I put in some effort and some work into it as well. And it used to give me heartburn. And I would feel so upset because I felt like, wow, I am talented. I have so much to offer. I have so much to give, but it's going unnoticed. It's going unnoticed. And I used to feel so bad about myself. And then I again got on the search for like, what can I do to show myself important, to show the world that I am important. And then I'm learning now that I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that, right? Because God has opened so many doors for me. God has placed me in front of the right people. Not the entire world, but He has placed me in front of the right people to bless me. Okay? To bless me. It doesn't take a whole lot of money. It doesn't take a whole lot of makeup. It doesn't, whatever it is that we think we need to be successful. It doesn't take a lot of that, especially when God's hand is on it, because God will make room for you. God will provide access. God will provide the means. God will provide the resources that you need to reach His goal, His purpose, right? His plans for your life. So again, I'm saying, come out of the darkness. Don't beat yourself up. Don't try to do it in your own time. Yes, you should have faith, and yes, you should work, but don't do all the work and not have faith. Trust, have hope. And as the verse stated, again, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, the plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you hope and a future. So if you are even contemplating suicide, don't. Because you are here, again, because you have a purpose and a future. God has plans for your life. You don't want to thwart the plans that God has for your life. And just because other people aren't seeing it, God will put you in the position or in the space where the person or the right person who needs to see it will see it. And I have one more, let me tell you. So I wanted to speak, right? I wanted to speak at a conference, and I was applying to a particular organization to be on at their conference, and I would get rejected all the time, right? And I only did it like twice. So, one time it's like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 100 times and they just kept rejecting me. I only did like once or twice. So actually twice, but the one time it was like 100 times. But let me tell you, an individual had a conference, right? She organized a conference and reached out to me via LinkedIn to speak at her conference. Mind you, I had never met this person, this lady, this business owner, this entrepreneur. I had never met this lady. The first time I met this lady was the night before the conference at a meet and greet. And we began to talk, and she shared that she had been walking and praying about her conference, and she prayed and she asked God to send the right people to her to present at her conference. You hear that? She prayed to God and asked God to send her the right people to present at her conference. And voila, here I go in her newsfeed, right? On LinkedIn. And I presented at her conference. I was able to set up my products, my service, my cards, my logo, what have you, advertise, present. Not one time, I presented, I think at least 4 times, right? At least 4 times on 4 different topics at this conference. And then I went on to speak at other conferences, right? Because again, God placed the right people in front of me, or placed me in front of the right people to commit to His plans and goals for my life. And so Now that I've spoken at these other conferences, the conference the organization that I was trying to speak with that rejected me is now asking me to try again to come speak at their conference. So you see how that works out. So it's not that all the people should see you, but the right person should be able to see you, right? God will place the right people in your path that will help accomplish your goal. And there was no audition for me presenting at the conference. There was no I didn't do a whole bunch of legwork. I did the right work, which was to have the presentations ready, but there was no hard work. It wasn't all that. And then it was a travel conference. I had to travel. Yes. And guess what? The organizer also helped with the travel expenses, right? The lodging. So again, hello. That's all I got. Hello. So again, don't beat yourself up because the world doesn't recognize you because you don't have the fame or what have you. God will again place you in the path of the right people so that your goals can be accomplished or his plans will be accomplished. So yes, so again, I'm telling you to come out of the dark and into the light. Agree to say yes. You're in your growing pain season. If you're feeling like life is just getting too hard, trust me, you are not by yourself. We are all feeling it. We are all feeling it. But know that you are not alone. You're just in your growing pain season. If you are still here, God has a plan and a purpose for your life, and it is not for you to go out there and try to take control and handle it yourself. God has control of your life. There is a plan, there is a purpose for your life. If you don't know, just continue to live, to remain steadfast, to be hopeful, to be faithful. Find the right people to connect with, someone who's going to help you evolve mentally, spiritually, and then those other things will come to pass. But you have to put God first. You have to put God first. So again, come out is the title for this episode. Come out. So by the next episode, it will be the day after Christmas. So I am wishing each and every one of you a happy, merry, self-caring, peaceful, and enjoyable Christmas. Remember, Jesus is the reason for the season. Not gifts, but Jesus. The birth of Jesus. It is someone's birthday. It is a birthday celebration. He brought the gift. He is the gift. So remember that. And as always, don't worry, but remain hopeful, peaceful, and joyful. Until next time, toodles.